You are on, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Beta.
Mhm.
Let's call the Public Works and Utilities Committee for July 26, 2021 to order. We have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz. Or a roll
Councilor
call.
Garcia,
Present.
Councilor Beta,
Here.
Councilor Lindell. Here. Councilor Vihil Coppler. Here. And Chairman Rivera.
I'm here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, approval of the agenda. Any changes from staff?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, there is a change from staff and it's on item B as in boy. And I think Alexandra Ladd is requesting that the item B of item B be removed. Can you clarify that, Alexandra?
Yes, thank you, Director Wheeler. The whole item needs to be removed. The 3 sub-items are now their own items, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much. Yes, so item B from consent should be removed from the agenda. Thank you, Director Ladd.
Are you gonna bring it back at a different time, Ms. Ladd, or?
Chair Rivera, the 2 of the items will actually go directly to council because we weren't able to get them processed in time to make the deadline for the Finance Committee meeting. And then the other 3 items are on the agenda tonight. So it's items C, D, and E.
All right, so we're keeping item B on, but we're only considering sub letters C, D, and E. Is that correct?
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Chair. Item B should be taken off. The next on the agenda items C, D, and E should be heard. And then the 2 items, so I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm not making sense here. So item B right now has 5 sub-items on it. 3 of those items are now on the agenda as C, D, and E. So the next 3 items are C, D, and E. And then 2 of those sub-items will go directly to council. So you will hear all of these items. You're just hearing 3 of them tonight and then 2 more on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm clear. I'm not sure if everyone else is, but I think I am. All right, anything else from staff?
No other changes, Mr. Chair.
All right, anything from the committee? Wishes of the committee?
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Motion for approval is amended by Councilor Lindell, second by Councilor Vihil Coppler. Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Beta,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell,
Yes.
Councilor Vihil Coppler,
Yes.
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Next, approve of the consent agenda. Any changes from staff?
No changes beyond the one we just discussed, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anything committee members would like to pull?
Mr. Chair,
Councilor Garcia?
I'd like to pull item L, please.
L?
Yes. L is in Lucky.
Very good. Councilor Lindell?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to pull item K.
K is in Kite?
Yep.
Very good. Councilor Vihil Coppler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to pull item F, and I also wanted to discuss item K. Thank you.
Very good. All right, so now we have item L, K, and F. If there's no further discussion, could we have a roll call vote, or could we have a motion, please?
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Motion for approval is amended by Counselor Vihel Coppler, second by Counselor Lindell. Any further discussion? Have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Abeta,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
yes,
Counselor Vihel Coppler,
Yes,
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next, approval of the minutes from July 12th, 2021, Public Works and Utilities Committee meeting. Any changes from staff?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Any changes from the committee? Wishes of the committee?
move to approve.
second,
Motion for approval by Counselor Vihel Coppler, second by Counselor Lindell. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Abeta,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
yes,
Counselor Vihel Coppler,
Yes,
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We have no presentation or informational items. We're on to the items pulled by the committee. The first item is item F. Can you read that into the record, please, Ms. Diaz?
A resolution requesting approval of fourth quarter budget amendments and associated New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division, DFA GD, schedule for fiscal year 2021. Andy Hopkins.
Thank you. Counselor Vihel Coppler, you pull this item.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Darn it, I'm looking for, I'm looking for the adjustments, if you would bear with me. I thought I had them here. At any rate, you all probably know, I guess it's page 5 of 11, which is what I'm looking for, but I'm not sure which document it is. And that, what I'm looking for is the not previously approved budget amendments chart. So, gosh, I'm trying to find that. Maybe it's the last one.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Counselor Garcia.
in regards to Counselor Vihel Coppler's question, is the documents under fourth quarter budget adjustments, FYE 21 resolution detail by fund?
Thank you, Counselor.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Yes. So if you look at the page count, I'm going to page 5 of 11. And the question I have is transfer of, it's item that they're fund 223. No, I'm sorry. It's fund 400 debt service fund. And there's $2,146,000 plus dollars. Transfer of bond premiums to appropriate funding to projects. So my question is, what projects, if you can tell me, what did we do with that $2,146,000?
Mr. Chair, Councilor Vihel Coppler, this is a bit of a weird one. This item is on there because it's not actually a change to a financial system. It's a change that has to be on there for DFA purposes only. The reason being that the bond premiums come out of one of the debt service org codes, and the GRT bond that received the premiums is in the same fund, the same debt service fund, but in the DFA system, it's actually in a different organizational unit than the other. So this does not actually represent any change to our city financial system. This is a change that has to be on there and approved for DFA's sake only. It's not. It's kind of weird because it's not really a transfer. It's going from one DFA code to the other. So that's why it has to be on here, because otherwise our DFA resolution will check out and they'll reject it. But it's actually not any movement of money for this. There was use of bond premiums for several projects, and you will see those on actually in the previous section, the budget amendments previously approved by council. Those include use of bond premiums in the following amounts: $1 million for the train depot renovation project. Also, $725,000 for library, GCC, and parks, tennis, and pickleball court improvements projects. And also $421,185 for the LED and solar streetlight conversion project. But in there, in a sense, you can see that they're kind of double counted, because those are where the actual money is moving. The ones that you referred to, Councilor Viejo-Koppler, are really just kind of, if anything, a redundancy, or, you know, all of those summed up again in a way that's kind of, you know, redundant, but unfortunately it has to be on there, or else DFA is going to come back and say, well, I'm not approving your fourth quarter because you didn't include this movement between DFA categories. It's not any movement between city categories. Again, it's no impact to the actual system. The redundant ones are the ones that I was talking about in the first section, the $1 million, $725,000, so on and so forth. Those are the actual things that will be hitting our city system. The ones that you referred to in the second section, the not previously approved, are just this redundancy that's not really, you know, affecting our system. It just affects our DFA reporting, and that's why it has to be there. And, you know, because you didn't approve, the council approved the transfers once, they didn't approve the transfers twice. That's why that $2 million is sitting in the not previously approved section. But again, it's no additional appropriation. It's no change to anything. It's just kind of a placeholder that has to be there so DFA will approve our quarterly budget.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. So maybe the language we could have used in that column could have referred to DFA and such, or is that this language what you have to have?
Mr. Chair, Councilor Viejo-Koppler, I suppose it could be, you know, creatively reworded. I just didn't want to get too specific with, you know, this is a DFA only adjustment, because then DFA is going to come back and say, well, what the heck are you doing? You know, why are you doing this, you know, for that? And, you know, of course it could be explained, but they tend to not always be the most understanding, and not always the easiest to work with when you have something weird like this happen. So that was kind of put there to be as, you know, correct as possible without, you know, unduly raising red flags that really don't need to be raised.
Okay, well, it sort of raised my red flag, because I wondered what projects we were funding with $2 million. So I understand what you're saying. I do think it could be a little bit more self-explanatory. But great, I understand. Thank you. Mr. Chair, that's the only question I have on that.
Any other questions on that item from the committee?
Move to approve.
Second,
Motion for approval by Council Lindell, second by Council Vihel Coppler. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Abeta,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Vihel Coppler,
yes,
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next, we're on item K. Can you read that into the record, please, Ms. Diaz?
Request for approval of a budget adjustment request in the amount of $2,990,000 to address critical road rehabilitation needs throughout the city of Santa Fe.
Thank you. Councilor Lindell and Councilor Vihel Coppler approve this. Councilor Lindell.
Thank you,
got
Chair.
first.
Is Mr. Brooks here?
Yes, Counselor, I'm here.
I just wanted to pull this and make a comment of what an exceptional job I think you've done on this and how much you've accomplished. It's amazing how when we get some money, how much we can get done. It's really very pleasing. I'm really grateful to you for working so hard on these projects and getting them on our summer 2021 plan. I know that all of them weren't initially there. And I just think you've done an exceptional job with this, and I wanted to thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Lindell. Councilor Vihel Coppler, you pull this as well.
thank you. I'll extend a thank you as well then. Appreciate it. My question, I can't recall, and we probably did meet on this, but I just have a question about how these roads were chosen. Is there a, I guess there's a master plan of maybe the worst roads? And perhaps that's probably how these got chosen?
Yes, Counselor, we have a master list of the roads that are in different stages and conditions. And the reason that these roads were chosen is because they are in fairly poor condition. And if we don't get to them fairly quickly, then they'll deteriorate further, which will just increase our costs. And these roads are, mostly arterials and major feeders, and so we feel that they need to be done. We've also included some residential roadways in here that are in extremely bad shape. And we feel that every time we do get money, that we need to start working on some of our more residential areas and taking care of those roads before they deteriorate to the point of a total reconstruction.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And just, I don't know if you want to correct this, but I think Cerrillos needs another R. Put some more money in there while you're at it. That's okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is all.
Any other questions from the committee?
Move to approve.
Second,
Motion for approval by Council Lindell, second by Council Vihel Coppler. I did want to thank you, Mark, for including all 4 districts in this rehab project. I think it's important to spread it out. It's important to all of our constituents, so thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Motion in a second, no further discussion. We have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Abeta,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Vihel Coppler,
yes?
and Chairman Rivera.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next, we're on item L. Can you read this into the record, please, Ms. Diaz?
Request for approval of amendment number 1 to the Global Management Performance Contract, Munis Contract number 3202498 with Dalkia Energy Solutions LLC for the City of Santa Fe streetlight conversion and maintenance to incorporate the specifications of the community-guided lighting design.
Thank you. This was pulled by Councilor Garcia, and Ms. Wheeler's here from staff.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Wheeler, for being present for the item. Just got a quick question. Can you clarify what's in this amendment?
Mainly the changes to the, thank you for the question, Councilor Garcia, Chairman Rivera. The main point of the amendment is to incorporate, as it says in the caption, the specifications of the community guided design, as well as to elaborate on the ongoing public engagement that will incur during that installation.
Okay. Just because it was, thank you for that clarification. I really appreciate it. And because it is a lengthy document, I would think it was like 200 pages. I couldn't really nail down the engagement portion. So can you point me to where that is included?
Yes, it's in the, thank you for that question too. It's in the implementation plan portion where you get more graphics. It's got like the map with the dots, and it has some pictures and tables. The rest of it's really the contract itself and then the amendment document. And so that's where you'll find it. We also have a short presentation about the community guided design if you'd like us to walk through. I mean, about the ongoing community engagement during the implementation, if you'd like us to walk through it.
Sure, but do you have a page number? Just because I do want to ensure that it's included in the document.
If I might, Councilor Garcia, it's page 15 on the PrimeGov website, 15 of the whole packet. It's page 9 of the implementation document itself, but I believe it's page 15 of the 208 pages.
Okay, thank you for that. I really appreciate that, Ms. Ernst. I see continuous community engagement, but I do not see the specific language. So just to refresh folks' memory on the matter, during our May 26th governing body meeting, when we were discussing the lighting plan, Councilwoman Villarreal had explicitly asked that there be a pause for what she considered a before-after analysis between the lighting phases, and this would be between each phase. And I do not see that language. I see kind of an ongoing process, but I don't see language to where once phase 1 is done, there's a pause with, as her request, a before-after analysis be completed. So is that included in this amendment?
Thank you so much for the question, Councilor Garcia. Actually, so what we've done is we're front loading the public engagement. So each section will take a little over a month. And so we'll be gathering public engagement from the very beginning of each section and responding. We'll be looking at it weekly as a project team, reporting on the feedback to the Public Works and Utilities Committee every 2 weeks. And that'll give us an opportunity to respond to the individual feedback. And just to note, there was no, the formal action by the governing body did not include direction for a pause. And so that there is not a pause incorporated, and it would be detrimental to the project to pause, as well as whatever would be perceived of as the change at that point. Would it be a contract change, an equipment change? So what we did was we are gathering actionable feedback, 5 questions in specific. Do you desire additional shielding? Are you experiencing a fugitive light from a street light that's been swapped, and do you need additional shielding? Would you support additional dimming strategies in your community? Does your neighborhood need additional light poles or fewer light poles? And what is your overall experience of the project? And so those are the pieces of feedback that we'll be gathering, and we can certainly respond to those as we're moving through the project.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate the questions and the engagement, but I do have to clarify for the record, there was a request made by governing body members during that meeting. And I'm happy to run through the dialogue with you if you'd like, but there was clear direction given from Councilor Villarreal, even clear response from you receiving that direction, as well as clear direction from Councilor Romero Worth asking if we needed to incorporate that direction in the motion. And we've got the confirmation from the city attorney saying, no, that direction was given. So I understand what you're saying, but that direction was given. And if it's needed to be for me to provide that information to the entire governing body, I'm more than happy to do so, because it is on the record that we requested such information.
Thank you,
So with
Councilor
that,
Garcia.
I would respectfully ask that in this amendment, it be incorporated that the direction that we gave during our May 26th meeting be incorporated into this amendment as requested. That was the discussion, is how do we incorporate the pause, the before after analysis into the amendment. And there was, as I mentioned, there was a lengthy discussion between Councilwoman Villarreal, the City Attorney McSherry, yourself, that verified what the direction was. I'm more than happy to send you that language. That way you have it. That way you know what the direction was, and that way it can be incorporated into this amendment as requested during that May 26th meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Garcia. Yes, we have reviewed the video as well. And we also have met with Councilor Romero Worth and Councilor Villarreal about this strategy for public engagement, and they're satisfied that it does accomplish the direction.
But that's two of the folks. I mean, you're going back to a meeting. You can't count out the remainder of the governing body during that process, because that direction was given. And should that direction not wanted to be taken by city staff, I wouldn't have voted on the measure in the way I did, because it was confirmed that that was going to be incorporated into this amendment. I mean, you clearly stated, I mean, when Councilwoman Villarreal asked that we're going to do this per phase, I mean, I have it here written down that she says, okay, per phase, and you said per phase, correct. And then she asks, what's the timeline to get the amendment? You go on to say, we'll be developing it and we'll go through the committee process. And later on, Councilor Romero Worth asks, does this need to be incorporated? I mean, it's, to me, that's trying to find a loophole to get out of the directive that was given, which I find very unfortunate. So I would request that it be incorporated into the amendment, and that way, if the governing body chooses not to move forward with what we had respectfully requested earlier, then we can, at the governing body, pull it out. But I am requesting that the information and language that we approved and requested to be incorporated into this amendment be drafted and included in what should have been in this amendment number 1. So with that, no other questions, Mr. Chair. And so with that, I guess if there's no other questions, then I'll make a motion to ensure that the language requested by the governing body during the May 26th to incorporate a pause after each phase to get before after analysis be included in the amendment that's before the governing body on Wednesday.
I'll second that.
I have a question, Chair. You're muted, Chair.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Motion by Councilor Garcia, second by Councilor Vihil Coppler. Discussion, Councilor Lindell.
Yeah, I'm unclear. Is this an amendment? What, would you clarify, Councilor Garcia?
Sure, happy to do so, Councilor Lindell. So what happened during our May 26th governing body meeting was there was a request from Councilwoman Villarreal to include a pause after each of these installation phases that are planned. The pause would allow for a before after analysis. And so then there was a dialogue between Councilwoman Villarreal and Director Wheeler, which also included the city attorney, that to determine how we could incorporate that into this amendment that we're hearing now. The direction given from Director Wheeler and City Attorney McSherry was that request that Councilwoman Villarreal had put forth would be included in this amendment that was being drafted. So with that being said, that request was not included in this amendment. That was a main reason why I voted for that measure in our May 26th meeting. So given that we technically didn't formally include it in the amendment, that was at the direction of the city attorney. Because as we go on further in that portion of that meeting, Councilor Romero Worth asks, just to be clear, we don't need to add this direction to the motion. Then Mayor Weber states, that is what I'm hearing from the city attorney. And then Councilor Romero says, all right, just checking in. We hear the motion. We all vote to approve it because I was under the assumption it didn't need to be technically given. We had went through the process and our city attorney verified the direction was given to staff to do so. And now we're at this juncture where that request was not included in this amendment. So with my motion, I'm requesting that original request be included in this amendment as requested back in our May 26th meeting. So hopefully that helps to clarify.
Well, it does. However, I do hear that Director Wheeler also had a conversation with Councilor Villarreal, who originally brought it up, and additionally Councilor Romero Worth, and that they were both satisfied with the process that's being put forth here. So maybe if you, well, I would be more comfortable if you made an amendment to this, asking for that it's an amendment rather than just saying that it should be included in this amendment. It sounds to me like it needs to be amended.
I agree, but I think the frustration lies that it wasn't included per the direction of the governing body when we voted. I understand that there was conversations had with Councilwoman Villarreal and Councilor Romero Worth. I also had a conversation with Councilor Villarreal, and she was in the same thought as I was because I actually provided her with all the information. And she was going to, from the last I spoke with her, reach out to Director Wheeler to try to get this information included in the amendment as requested. I think it's great that she spoke with Councilor Romero Worth and Councilor Villarreal, but what about myself? What about the other 6 or 7 governing body members? Don't we have a say in the matter?
Thank you so much. If I could, Mr. Chair, we did actually meet with
Director Wheeler,
Garcia.
I have the floor. Director Wheeler. I'm sorry, but I this is where I believe that if that's the direction we're going in, and we're given the guidance from the city attorney that we didn't need to include it in the motion, and now from city staff we're saying because you didn't include it in the motion, then I think it puts us in a very challenging situation where the city attorney gives us guidance in one route, but it was actually the wrong guidance. Or I think this, Councilor Lindell, you might be right just to put in an additional amendment, but I think my concern is that the original direction given to staff was not followed. And I think that's to me concerning in that sense. So with that, I mean, I'm happy to move forward with the amendment, but I would prefer to move forward with the way we had requested it originally. So with that, I would like to, I don't know, I'll yield the floor, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Wheeler, you have your hand up.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I just wanted to clarify that we did also meet with Counselor Garcia and review this public engagement plan. I'd also like to remind the members of the committee is that there was sort of a large, it was a large request about ongoing engagement, getting feedback and adjusting the project as we're moving forward with the installation. And so we have quite a robust system here that includes door hangers, website, phone numbers where people can give us feedback. So we'll be actively soliciting feedback from everybody, from people as soon as we start the installation. In each of the sections, we'll be reviewing those pieces of feedback weekly as a project team and responding to the constituents as well as to their feedback. And as I said, bringing as well a report to this committee every 2 weeks at the Public Works and Utilities Committee meeting. And so I just like to clarify that the direction that was given and the conversation that was had has been responded to in a very meaningful and robust way. And that I think the pause is the only thing that is not there. So it's not that we aren't not responding to the direction.
Thank you. Councilor Vihil Coppler, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we had this discussion about the streetlights, as you recall, it was just a very, controversial. Everybody had different opinions about it. And if I recall, we wanted to have some kind of oversight by an outside party to determine how I guess the quality control of how this would happen. And so you might recall too that we went through, I think, several different motions failing or this and that. But I was more drawn to vote to approve because we seem to have reached some kind of good consensus about being sure that we don't just travel on and get these lights installed without any kind of review from the public, i.e. the pauses, or look at those. They're not so bad after all, or no, those aren't just going to work at all, or something like that. And I thought that was a good resolution to say, okay, well, let's just give it a chance to work as we go through these different parts of the city. And maybe lighting is different in different parts of the city, when this is implemented. So I felt good about that. I remember the discussion and thought, well, okay, there was a level of trust, I have to say, whereby, okay, it's informal, but everybody knows on this governing body that we're gonna do a little pause. Maybe it's a short pause. I don't know. We didn't ever really identify the pause, but I could see it just saying, oh yeah, look, that feels good. It works. Let's move on. Okay, that looks good. It works. Let's move on. That's kind of how I envisioned it. It would be kind of a real-time effect. How is this working? And so that made me feel a lot better when I voted for this. And as we often do, we get convinced not to put something in our contracts or in our amendments or in our resolutions. Oftentimes we do this because we've discussed something to death, and to create language to amend something right on the spot, it takes some effort. And so again, I think it was a level of trust when it was asked by Councilor Romero Worth, do we need to put this in the resolution or in the amendment? And so because of maybe one of those things I just mentioned, we said, no, well, let's just, we understand it. I think Ms. Wheeler, you said that. I understand. And then we'll just incorporate it, as we go into this particular amendment we're looking at today. So every time we do things like this, I think a level of trust is affected. And I don't know what's wrong with doing that, as long as we, don't take all the time in the world, because different sections of our streets I think the lighting is going to be a little different. And heavens to Murgatroyd, I'm not thinking that we're going to go back and start over. Hopefully, it's just a time to reflect. Is this is this working? Is this the kind of lighting that we need? So while I can appreciate that you have these discussions offline, outside of a committee meeting, you know, there are those of us who had a level of trust that, okay, everybody agrees this and staff agrees this is what's going to happen. And then it doesn't happen. And so that's why I'm supporting this. I think there's two things. One is the issue, and the other one is, you know, we have to abide by what commitments were made and honor them. And so that's what I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Vihel-Coppler. Anything else from the committee? I will say that I can't support this motion simply because the pause isn't defined. Are we looking at a 3-day pause? Are we looking for a 6-day pause? Are we looking for a 30-day pause? I don't know. I think that has to be defined, and I agree with Councilor Lindell that if that's an amendment that needs to be made, it should go through the process of an amendment sheet and probably make it to the governing body in order to discuss that further. We hear this again in 2 days at the entire governing body meeting, so it gives staff time to look through minutes. I guess have further discussions with Councilor Villarreal and Councilor Romero-Worth to see if there's any additional thoughts that they had, but without a clear definition, it's hard for me to support that. So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think you brought up a great point, which is why there was the direction to work with staff to create this amendment, to incorporate that critical information, such as what does a pause look like? I think, you know, as Councilor Vihel-Coppler mentioned, there was that discussion, and we don't want to hash out the amendments there during the 26th meeting. We can go back and figure it out. That way it's incorporated into this amendment number 1. And I think that is what's frustrating, is that there was the direction given that we were going to, staff was going to work with us to make sure that amendment was correct and incorporated into this amendment. That way it was ready to go. And there was no, there was a clear understanding in what timeline of pause looked like, what was going to be involved in it and whatnot. So it to me, it seemed like staff just didn't follow the direction we gave, which to me is very frustrating and concerning. And just to clarify for the record, I did meet with Director Wheeler and the Delkia representatives. And during that meeting, I did ask for, you know, how was the incorporation of the pause that was requested involved in this process? And Director Wheeler gave me the response of that was never a request, which made me feel like I was somewhat living in the twilight zone, because I clearly remember that discussion, which made me go back to review that portion of the meeting, which clearly laid out as a lot of the information I gave you this afternoon. So I think this is something bigger than this particular matter, where we're gonna, as a governing body, gonna have to figure out how we move forward when a particular directive is given to staff. We've now found out in this instance that because it wasn't incorporated into the motion, staff felt like they didn't have to follow direction. We've heard from you know, our city attorney in the past that resolutions aren't necessarily law binding. So if folks don't want to follow them, they don't have to follow them. And I think this begs to the bigger question of, then what is the ultimate role of the city council? If the direction and guidance we provide can just be dismissed unless it's in an absolute ordinance law making form, then it really challenges the authority and power of this city council. So with that,
Councilor Garcia, can you read again the minutes that discuss the pause itself?
sure, so this is at hour 6, minute 34, beginning at second 28. And I'm more than happy to read through the dialogue for you. So Councilwoman Villarreal stated, from what I understand, my requirement to do a phase-by-phase approach with the pause between the phases so that we can do a before-after analysis. What's the next requirement for approval that we would be able to add that language? Then the city attorney McSherry states, I think we will be bringing forward an amendment that will incorporate this lighting plan. So the amendment could also address other priorities of the contract. It would be a good idea, I think, to get this in writing to figure out what section of the contract it goes, and any exact language we can all have in front of us so that Delkia knows what they are agreeing to. Then Councilwoman Villarreal, yeah, I think it needs to be explicit, and I was trying to figure out the best language for tonight. But you are saying that it's not in this phase as part of the lighting plan, but the phasing of the next steps, whatever form that comes in. You said a resolution. And then City Attorney McSherry says the resolution I was speaking of would be if we wanted to ask for dark sky consultant or something like that to set up new standards of dark sky or propose for that. I think we can do the amendment all at once. I think what Regina was planning to do was put forth an amendment incorporating the lighting design if adopted tonight. This isn't a final vote on the contract amendment. That needs to be prepared, but the contract amendment could include other things as well. So it will be essential amendment number 1 to the contract that's named here and what would be included in the lighting design. And I think Regina and Delkia need to look at other areas of the contract to speak to timing of the phasing and that type of thing. And then we would need to insert it in there. I'm not sure off the top of my head where it needs to go. Then Council Villarreal says, okay, so in that case, what's the timeline for us to get that section back to us for approving the final contract? I didn't mean to say resolution, but what's the process? What are we going to receive the next time we talk about this? Then Director Wheeler says, an amendment to the contract that will include the equipment change in the brand new implementation plan. Because the implementation plan outlines what section of town we would do it exactly at what date and how long. So I think it would be a good place to hold the idea of gathering feedback as we go. Then Councilwoman Villarreal says, okay, per phase you mean. Director says, per phase, correct. Councilwoman Villarreal, and what timeline to get that amendment? Director Wheeler, we will be developing it, and I thought where it would go through the committee council process, so probably back to the governing body in a month and a half. Councilwoman Villarreal, okay, and it will go through committee. Director Wheeler, I thought it should. Yeah, it seems to be appropriate. We do have the crunch of getting it installed, but we built that time to get through the amendment through the committee council process. Councilwoman Villarreal, I don't want to be wordsmithing it so much in the committee process, so I'd like the language to be in the amendment you are talking about, and then we can make the adjustments as needed. Thanks, that's all I have. Then Council Romero Worth. So just to be clear, we don't need to add this to the direction of the motion. Mayor Weber, that's what I'm hearing from the city attorney. Councilor Romero Worth, all right, just checking. And then we went on to vote.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Garcia. Ms. Wheeler, you have your hand up.
I just wanted, sorry, thank you so much, Chairman. I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to point out that I'm not ignoring guidance. We did do a lot of work on a public engagement process to be able to get actionable feedback as we're doing the installation. The idea of different lighting for different parts of town actually is an interesting one. The governing body has already approved the lighting design, which specifies the equipment. And that will be incorporated into the contract, and it will in fact be ordered and purchased. So the idea of changing the lighting design midway through the project is a very expensive consideration. And maybe I should have been more explicit about that sooner. So we're being very intentional about the feedback that we're getting, but we can't change the equipment midway through the project. We have the lowest Kelvin lighting we can have. We have the lowest lumen lighting that we can have and meet standards. It's been specified and approved. And so we're happy to take feedback ongoingly and certainly have these discussions on every 2-week basis with this committee. So without a pause, we can certainly make any adjustments that are possible, but changing the lights is not going to be one of the things that's possible. And so I guess if that is the goal, that I just need to let folks know that the equipment will already be purchased based on the approved lighting design. And that we did very much take the feedback, and we really did spend time thinking deeply about how to engage the community. And you'll see as well in the implementation plan, there is before and after. So there'll be a drone flyover before the lights are installed in each section and a drone flyover afterwards, so that we can make sure that the performance meeting the lighting standards for the streets are met. That'll be documented and available. So all of the elements of the feedback were very carefully incorporated and actually even expanded. And the only thing that is not there is the pause, but we decided that we were doing better than that by starting early and communicating often, reviewing the feedback weekly, and then talking to the Public Works Committee every 2 weeks. So I think we have a lot of opportunity to use the feedback to improve the project, but a change in the equipment is not one of the things that we'll be able to do.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Motion by Councilor Garcia, a second by, we have further discussion. Councilor Beta.
I just want clarification on the motion. What is the motion again, Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Garcia, do you mind repeating your motion?
My motion was to go ahead and move this forward, but to incorporate the request that the governing body made prior, to include the pause. I mean, and I understand your concern, Councilor or Chair Rivera, in regards to the timing of the pause and what that looks like. But that's not us who put us in this predicament. It was staff who unfortunately put us in that predicament because we gave the direction the work should have been done. And as requested, and as I went through the dialogue, it should have came to us prepared.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. As the motion stands, I'm not going to support it because I want the motion, it can have an amendment at governing body, but I'm not comfortable just tacking something on verbally to it at this point in time. That's what got us to where we are in this discussion right now. So I don't want to go through this again. So that's the reason that I won't be supporting this motion as it stands. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. All right, motion and a second. Don't see any further discussion. We have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Abeyta,
No.
Councilor Lindell,
No,
Councilor Vihil Coppler,
Yes.
Chairman Rivera.
No.
Motion fails.
Thank you. And my recommendation, Councilor Garcia, is probably an amendment prepared on a written sheet is probably gonna be the best way to address what you think needs to go in there. And then a further discussion probably by the entire governing body. So that motion fails to have that. Do we have another motion to approve it?
Move for approval.
second,
Motion for approval by Councilor Beta, second by Councilor Lindell. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please, Ms. Diaz.
Councilor Garcia,
No.
Councilor Abeyta,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell,
yes,
Councilor Vihil Coppler,
Yes.
Chairman Rivera.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. We're through with our consent calendar. We have nothing for action items or discussion. Nothing for executive session. Matters from staff, Ms. Wheeler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and for the Public Works Committee. I wanted to give you an update on the bicentennial pool. You saw today that there was a motion, a bar to move some capital funds into road paving. There are capital funds available right now, and we are earmarking some of them for the bicentennial pool. However, we had another contractor decline to give us a bid last week. He's a great contractor. His name is Steve Kraft from Westcon. You may know him. He may have built this pool. He's built other pools in our region. And I did speak with him last week, and he has agreed to come back into the mix and to work with another contractor to develop a proposal for us, a quote for us for the work. So we had hoped to have it last week, but they continue to work on it. And so we are earmarking some of the capital funds, so we'll be able to fund it, and we'll bring it forward to the governing body as soon as we actually have a quote and a scope. And I'll just add that the facility is aged, and while we need to focus on, of course, getting the pool fixed and open next year in time, we're also going to take the opportunity to make miscellaneous repairs to the facility that have been needed for some time. And so it'll be a comprehensive proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Councilor Lindell?
Thank you. Ms. Wheeler, how are we doing on having project managers to oversee this kind of project? We've got, I know, a ton of projects. I'm super grateful that we're moving along the bicentennial pool. It was really necessary to have that happen. It's our outdoor pool, and it's really important. We had some real hiccups with it, and I just am curious as to how we're doing with all the projects that we have to have people kind of shepherding them along.
Thank you so much for that question, Chairman and Councilor Lindell. We are extremely short of project managers across the board in Public Works. We do have a posting right now that will close in a couple of days, where we're hoping we have 4 project administrator positions that we're trying to fill, one in parks, one in transit, and one in engineering, and one in facilities as well. We'll be lucky to get one solid candidate that we can hire, but we have our fingers crossed, and we did leave it open for a month. Sam Burnett is managing the BC pool since it's such an important project. He's also managing the teen center. He's managing the train depot. And we're definitely short-staffed. Romella Glorioso Moss is managing all $60 million of road projects we have going on. And so we're posting positions, hiring as quickly as we can, as well as preparing an additional notice according to the settlement to the union of the use of contractual services to help us with project management at this time. There are some really great resources available to the city that we can utilize once we give another notice pursuant to the settlement. And so we're working it on all angles, and I think everybody's chipping in. We've got division directors running projects. I'm running the streetlight project. Javier Rosado was running it before he left to go to the laboratory. So it's challenging. We're hiring as fast as we can, and we're looking at developing the ability to access other resources.
So I'm just looking for your opinion, Ms. Wheeler. When you say we have numerous openings and we have them posted, and that we'll be lucky to get one hire, is it that we're not paying enough? What is it that is keeping us so short-staffed with project managers? Because we're in a position right now where we have some financial capability to do the projects, and it's important that we do them and that we oversee them properly. I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions of what we need to do to make that happen in a more expeditious way.
Thank you for the question, Chairman Counselor Lindell. Pay is not, well, pay is sort of the answer, because when it comes to the point of pay, it's sort of like somebody else will pay them 50% more than we can, right? So, you know, along the lines of how we lost Javier to the Rosado to the laboratory, they were going to pay him 50% more to be an entry-level project manager at the laboratory. So that is impossible to compete with. But I think what we're seeing is, you know, but if somebody comes in and they want to make on the higher end of the range, we can manage our budget, and we can work with finance and HR and pay that person. For instance, we had a great candidate the last time we posted our project administrator position, who has been in charge of the gas system in Las Cruces for years. And he needed a little bit more than mid-range, which is where it was budgeted. We were able to put that offer together, and then he declined. He decided not to move to Santa Fe. I think the problem is just the shortage of workers. We're getting so few qualified applicants. It's not that, and everybody wants them. The county's looking for them, Lano's looking for them, the state is looking for them. And so you know, when they're in the range, I think the thing we need to do, and we're definitely doing this with HR, and Director Jones may have some to add about this, because I think they have some of the same challenges in public utilities. But we are developing, like Sam Burnett posted our project administrator opening on LinkedIn in a really nice presentation. And so we're going to get his template from him, and we're going to all do that. HR is working on getting us a LinkedIn profile for the city so that we can do regular job advertising there. That's a great way to have people that are professionals that are in the field know about the opportunities and know who's related, maybe a personal relationship. And that's one of the things is, so we're posting longer and really trying to shake the trees, contact universities and professional organizations to try to solicit the applications, which is we're just not getting applications. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Director Jones, if you guys have had some innovations in hiring or challenges.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I think Regina did a good job. I think, as you can tell, we don't think there's one silver bullet that addresses our staffing issues. And because the issues are multifaceted, our approaches have to be multifaceted. And I think that is being taken into consideration. There's a lot of meetings, one-on-one meetings happening at the department levels and with human resources to really identify what those challenges are and how we look to address them. Again, we have to be able to attract the qualified people who are in high demand and very competitive right now. So we do have to take that in consideration. Also looking at how do we look at upper mobility? The people that we have now, what are the jobs they can do? There are a lot of people that are stepping up, filling gaps, but also creates a gap, and it has to be relooked at. I think, salaries are a part of that equation. I know that's being considered. And so again, and how we advertise, how do we get the word out to people? What the city of Santa Fe needs and why we're the best place to work. So again, I think it's multifaceted. And I think each of those are very in-depth conversation points that we are having. I think we have seen some movement, but I do hear Regina, and I feel for Director Wheeler, I've been there where you have a candidate, you think you're crossing the finish line, and it changes in the last second, right? They start and they move on, or they get a job before they get here, or you hire somebody and two more people leave. I mean, it's just, I see how it can be aggravating and frustrating, but I think, again, developing the plan that we're doing, modifying it to fit our current situation, how do we adapt, and then just continuing to work the plan and allow the process to work. I don't know. So that's some of my thoughts. I appreciate the opportunity to share, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. I appreciate it. I just, it's, if there's something that we need to do to move this along, or if we need to reassess, we should do it instead of struggling along, because we have the funds right now and we have lots of projects that we want to do. And I just would like to be as helpful as we possibly can. And I appreciate how much all of you take on, which is an amazing workload. So that's all I have, Chair. Thank you very much.
Sorry, thank you, Councilor Liddell. Councilor Vihil Coppler, you had your hand up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask Ms. Wheeler a question about the bicentennial pool and sort of the long-range thinking on that. I certainly know that the cost benefit of the pool in the right now immediate future is to do the repairs and such. And I just am wondering if there's any future planning on, how long are we going to continue to make these repairs? How much will they cost? And how much of that money could go into a new swimming pool? So what is the cost benefit? What is your recommendation? And how long are we just going to repair the pool? And is it eventually going to be more wasteful to do that than to bite the bullet at some future date and do a new pool? And is this money we can ask for at the legislature?
Thank you so much for all those questions. Yes, which is, I know it's a bigger conversation that the governing body would like to have about the pools. And this is the thinking. If we want to think about a new aquatic center somewhere in the city, it will be an $8 to $10 to $12 million project. And we are happy to undertake a planning process and a public engagement process to take a look. Where should that be? What facilities? Should it have like a bubble that goes up in the winter and comes down in the summer so it's year round? What ancillary facilities does it have? What can we afford from operating another facility perspective at another pool? And so that conversation, we've heard governing body loud and clear that they're interested in having that. And so that's on our long range plan as an assessment for a new aquatic facility. But in the meantime, for what we're estimating to be a total refurbishment of the existing pool that will last you 10 to 20 years, as well as the facility itself of around 1.4 million, that's a big cost benefit to just get that done, have an outdoor pool while we do the bigger sort of evaluation of, do we want a bigger, better outdoor aquatic center? What does it look like and where does it exist? So that's our thinking at this time.
So it's going to cost 1.4 million to do the repairs that you're looking at right now?
That's our rough estimate. We don't have the quote, but we think that should include a complete rebuild of the pool as well as other repairs to the facility.
So will you be giving us a report an update at a future Public Works meeting so that we can have a more precise number after you talk to the gentleman that you just talked about?
Yeah, Mr. Kraft from WestCon. Yes, absolutely. So our intent, as soon as we get the quote put together and it looks like a good project to propose for the governing body, we'll bring it forward with the money, allocate a bar to allocate the funds for it, and let the governing body decide if that investment is one that they'd like to move forward with, and with including the details of the work.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Mr. Jones, did you have anything from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no additional comments from staff. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Wheeler, you and I spoke about this, but I'm, I think, in the same place as Councilor Vihil Coppler is looking for, maybe instead of making repairs that we do something better than we have. So I talked to you about the pool that I went to when I was in Carlsbad that had splash pads and some small slides. It wasn't anything like a huge park, but it was a municipal pool that had had a small lazy river. I mean, a pool. It was good for every age group. So if we're to that point where it would be more cost effective to do something similar to that, versus just making some repairs for a large amount of money, I would be interested in looking at both of those. So thank you for listening. I know you heard, I know when I talked to you before, we had had a little discussion on it. So just wanted to make that known again. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, matters from the committee. Councilor Viejo Copper, is that the same hand or a new
Oh,
hand?
this is a new hand.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Viejo
I
Copper.
wish this would let us raise a left and a right, but then maybe you could tell. Now I have I don't know, just a general comment, not to be misunderstood, but it seems to me since we combined this committee, Utilities and Public Works, the majority of the reporting and the agenda items, other than sometimes contractual things, are Public Works. And no offense to Mr. Jones, but I feel like I'm not really anymore knowing much about what's going on at Utilities, only when wastewater breaks down. And so I'm not sure if that's just, I mean, it seems to me if we had a Utilities Committee like we used to, and I'm not saying we should, but I think we used to hear a lot of stuff from Utilities, and I'm feeling like Utilities is kind of maybe a stepchild of this committee, and I would like to know more about what is happening there. You know, I don't know if anybody else feels that way. It might make our meetings a little bit longer, but I'll feel a little bit more in touch. And I just wanted to express that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councilor Viejo Copper. When we combined the meetings, well, previous to combining, we had presentations from basically every utility department that we had. So when we combined, we talked about if those were necessary to continue. And we had a discussion, we pulled them out of the agendas because we felt the meetings would be then way too long. But I can speak with Mr. Jones and maybe incorporate one of those presentations, which we've had some discussion about already, is each department do a monthly presentation to keep us up to date on those things that are going on in all the utilities. So I'll talk to him more about that before our next meeting. But thank you for that.
So if I may, you know, we hear a lot from people about development. Where's the water going to come from? I feel like I'm a little bit better because I get information from the BDD, because we do talk strictly, you know, water and all of that, and treated water and all. We get reports from Dr. Roach and all that, but that's a different slant on everything that I hear in that arena. And so, you know, we don't have necessarily the same staff members at BDD. Then, in fact, Mr. Jones doesn't regularly attend those, and it's not necessary really because of the subject on the agenda. But I just feel like there's more going on in water. It's a big utility. It's an enterprise fund. I know there's things going on there, so I just would feel like there should be a venue, since that is part of this committee, where we should be updated on a lot of things that are happening there, especially because a lot of the effort is our water planning, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything else from the committee? See nothing matters from the chair. Our next meeting is Monday, August 9th. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you all for being here tonight.